My goodness, I've been busy. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for making me feel so old. You know what you do with it? You put it in a cupboard.
Somewhere safe.
September 8, 2022 was the day that rocked both the nation and the world, as the world's longest reigning monarch, through Her Majesty, the late Queen Elizabeth II, passed away peacefully in her home surrounded by family. News from all over the world spread quickly as the world's beloved monarch had finally followed her husband, the late Philip, who died in 2021. However, what's to happen to monarchy now after the Queen's passing? The death of Queen Elizabeth II puts in action a painstakingly orchestrated and coordinated sequence that has long been prepared by the palace, the government, the news media, local authorities, and the Queen herself. Among the public grieving, national anguish, and flag lowering will be a power transfer and national memorializing known as Operation London Bridge, which will dominate the country's attention for days and might last months until the coronation of a new king. TV emergency alerts and bells were turned off, while radio stations' programming was reduced. The stock exchange was closed and sporting activities were cancelled. The news readers will be dressed in black and the RAF will be grounded. Parliament will be quickly reconvened, people will go home, the entire country will come to a standstill, and it will feel like a national emergency, all because of a single code phrase. It has been 66 years since the death of a monarch in Britain and the accession of a new one. King George VI died in 1952, making Queen Elizabeth II the new queen, and she has been holding the throne since then at the age of 25. She is not only the longest reigning monarch in the history of Britain, but also the most loved one. 3 of the last 4 prime ministers were born after she came to the throne, and the majority of the living are descendants of her. Everything down to the last minute is meticulously planned to give Queen Elizabeth a farewell to the world he has never seen, and most likely will never see again. In her final hours, the Queen was with her family and a team of doctors led by the Queen's senior doctor, Professor Hugh Thomas. People were notified about the Queen's health at regular intervals until the last bulletin. The first official who received the news of the Queen's death was the Queen's private secretary, who then passed on the information via a secure phone line to the Prime Minister. The Foreign Office's Global Response Center, based in a secure location in London, communicated the news to the 15 governments outside the UK, where the Queen was also the head of state, as well as the 36 other Commonwealth nations for whom she has served as a symbolic figurehead. Governors general, ambassadors, prime ministers, and other important people in the country, as well as those abroad, were informed first through secure lines. A footman dressed in mourning attire emerged and pinned a note to the gates of Buckingham Palace, detailing a 10-day mourning period that began at the same moment. The palace website was turned into a single page with the same notification on a black backdrop, and the BBC activated an alarm system known as RATS, which stands for Radio Alert Transmission System. For over 30 years, reporters and anchors have been rehearsing the Queen's death by substituting the name Mrs. Robinson. For many years, they have performed mock storylines about the Queen Mother choking on fish bone. These rehearsals were now put into action in BBC. Experts on royal topics were invited to talk exclusively on those channels. The BBC's comedy shows were restricted and satire were removed from the air. Rugby and hockey matches were cancelled. Big screens were placed in provincial locations so fans could watch events in London. Local leaders across the country covered their decorations with black flags, and messages from presidents and parliaments around the world are expected to continue to pour in. Many nations declared a several-week mourning period for the Queen, and around 10,000 tickets were printed for invited guests, the first of which were about the proclamation of the new king. In the days following the announcement, the Royal Mint will begin producing new coins with the new monarch's image on them for issue upon accession. A jet aircraft from RAF's No. 32 Squadron, known as the Royal Flight, took off from the western edge of London to bring her back with a coffin. A second train followed the first one to sweep flowers and debris from the railway lines in every scenario in which the Queen's body returns to the throne room at Buckingham Palace. Charles has been declared King of England in the entrance room of St. James Palace. He took the first official act of his rule when he swore to safeguard the church in Scotland. The national anthem was performed on black cloth-wrapped drums, and trumpeteers from the Life Guards stepped outside for 3 blasts. Britain welcomed a new king for the first time in 66 years, and the whole world watched it. There was no fleet of bulletproof limousines and fancy cars on the streets. Instead, there were horse carriages and men wearing cocked hats everywhere. A group of men dressed up as characters of some Shakespeare drama went by carriage. The new king will immediately begin a 4-nation tour, stopping by places to attend services in memory of his mother and meet the leaders of the nation. Much of this will be done by walking around and not being by in a car. The procession from Buckingham Palace was a massive military parade that accommodated 1 million people on the streets of London. The march arrived at Westminster Hall just on the hour, and the big band began to shine as they came to a stop. King Charles was the first in a series of projected monarchs. 4 troops maintained guard for 20 minutes at a time. The most senior of the 4 stood at the foot of the coffin, while the most junior stood at the end. An exact replica of the hall was set up somewhere nearby so soldiers can practice their movement before going on duty. The Queen's children and grandchildren, including women for the first time, arrived unannounced and stood vigil over the coffin as per tradition. Football stadiums will remain open for memorial services before dawn on a funeral day. Queen Elizabeth II was the first British monarch to have her funeral in Westminster Abbey since George II in 1760, and she will forever be remembered as one of the great queens of Britain. Although the Queen's passing left us in mourning, since she has moved our hearts for years as the Queen, life must move on. If you need the latest updates regarding the mourning period of Her Royal Majesty and the first few days of the reign of King Charles III, subscribe to our channel and ring that bell icon to stay notified. Thank you for watching till the end and see you in our next video.